Okay, again, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this Wednesday morning or afternoon, depending on where you're calling from. But I'm going to assume that the majority of you are located in California, since this webinar is about a California retirement savings plan called CalSavers. And in this webinar, we'll discuss what CalSavers exactly is, what you need to know about CalSavers, the pros and cons, and basically all things CalSavers. And at the end of this presentation, we'll have an adequate amount of time to do some Q&A, but please feel free to drop any questions in the chat box at any time during this webinar. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Melanie Peckham. Melanie, she is a CPA, a financial educator, and a leadership coach at Lighthouse Financial. And in her free time, she loves to ice skate, hike, cook, and travel. So I'll let you take it away, Melanie.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate the warm welcome. And to everybody on the call, welcome on this, what day is today? Wednesday, on this beautiful Wednesday morning. So I'm excited, you guys, to talk about CalSavers. It is, as you can see, whether or not, now, I'm not sure on the audience, and I would love for you guys also to maybe drop in the chat at some time when I'd like to engage with the audience a little bit. But for those of you, you may be aware of CalSavers, maybe you're not, and that's okay. Today, we're going to kind of take you from A to Z. So let's kind of dive in. Now, before we dive in on the very specifics of the CalSavers, I do think it's important to really know a foundation, because part of the foundation kind of helps you understand it. Sometimes when these new laws come out, it may seem more work for you, but I do think as you're growing your businesses that it's important to understand, even a little bit of history. So I'm going to keep it brief, I promise. But if we can look over here on the left-hand side, the reason why, and you may not be aware of what pensions are. Pensions used to be a very big thing. My dad, for instance, worked at GM his whole life, and there was a pension there. Pensions aren't so common anymore. In 1780, the pension was born. And the reason for that being, it was actually during the Revolutionary War. And that was the way that they were able to offer basically compensation to widows and orphans for those that served in the military. And so they also used a pension plan to encourage enlistment, prevent people from leaving, right? And that's basically how the pension started. At that time, that was the only retirement plan in place, right? And then, of course, as we see in 1875, the American Express Company was actually the biggest company at that time. And so they were able to offer a private pension, private meaning non-government related, right? It was, at this time, it was more mom and pop shops. In 1980, the 401k was born. Okay, why do I share this? Because right now we're about 42 years after the 401k started, and we're starting to see the effects of, did people save enough? Didn't they save enough? We're starting to see those repercussions right now as the baby boomer generation is retiring. And in 1983, only 3 years after that 401k started, nearly half of all large companies considered offering one or did offer one. And then in 1996, 30 million people participated in a 401k plan. That's the most history I'm going to give you today, but I really want to share this because retirement plans are only a tool to help you as the business owner achieve what you're trying to achieve, right? So as of right now, today, they're saying it's, the great resignation. People are leaving being an employee and starting their own job, right? Maybe like some of you. I'm not sure. But the idea is that how can you, some of the questions you want to ask yourself is how can you, as you're building your company, you want to be able to retain and attract talent that can help you focus on, your role a little bit better and also build your company as to however you see fit. So again, retirement plans are a tool for you to be able to achieve that, as you can see here. So real quick, again, just a little bit more on the about, we talk about the three-legged stool. And I'm giving you some preface here as to why is CalSavers, again, if you're not sure what that is, I'll get there in a second, but why is the state mandating that every company has to offer some sort of retirement plan? And the reason for that, again, is that in 1980, when the 401k went into place, it's now 42 years later, and we're starting to see the effects of it, right? So you can see in here in this photo that, there used to be a stool with 3 legs. One used to be company pensions, which when the 401k came out, pensions almost became obsolete, right? Less and less companies are offering pension plans because it costs the employer quite a bit of money. Social Security, we know that as the baby boomer generation is retiring, there's less and less people putting money into the pot and more receiving. So the only solid leg we have here is their personal savings, right? So the question is how much are people saving? And a lot of other cultures in other countries, the savings is pretty high. I think in Asia, the savings can be up to 50% of someone's paycheck. In America, it's around 2%. It's very, very low. And so again, this is one of the reasons why the state has, or not just California, many other states as well that you'll see here, have started to mandate some of these things, to help people save. So here we go. Why a state mandate, right? Why is California saying, every company over a certain amount of employees must offer some sort of retirement plan for their employees? Number one, it's to address the retirement savings gap. As we can see here, only 4 in 10 businesses over or less than 100 employees offer some sort of retirement benefits, which is super low. And then the second reason is that employees are much more likely to save when they have access to a 401k or similar plan. Now think about this, right? Imagine the more I talk to people, the more they say, if it comes out of my paycheck, I don't even think about it. So they love that aspect. So the idea here is that workers are, and this is a true fact, workers are 15 times more likely to save when they have access to an automatic enrollment in their workplace retirement. So when it's coming directly out of their paycheck, they don't even see it, right? So these are 2 great reasons why the state has mandated CalSavers. So what is CalSavers? CalSavers is a retirement savings program for the private sector, private meaning, non-government, for the private sector workers where the employer does not offer a retirement plan already. So I'll go through, I have a flow chart you'll see in a second, but the idea here is that it's through a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, meaning that if someone owns a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA on their own, it's essentially the same thing. The only difference is that it can be deducted straight from their paycheck, right? And it's through the employer technically. Not the employer is the one that's withholding the money, basically. So it's an easy way for employers to help employees save for retirement. Now, two very good reasons why, as you saw before, only 4 in 10 businesses, less than 100 employees offer some sort of retirement plan. There's maybe a good reason for that, right? One is that, it costs money to offer a retirement plan. And then second, there is a fiduciary liability that, the upkeep of the plan, is it in the proper investments? Does it have the proper structures and things like that? That can be overwhelming for small businesses, right, that are growing. And so the idea here is that with CalSavers, there is absolutely no employer fees at all, which is wonderful. And then the second thing is that there is no fiduciary liability. So this has really little to do with the employer. The state is the one that's handling everything. The employer is simply only the one, just like you withhold Medicare or Social Security, things like that. You're going to be doing the same thing. You're going to be withholding the money that the employee, the percentage that they approve, and then you're going to remit that to CalSavers, and that's it. So that's hopefully a quick summary of what CalSavers is. And then here we have it. I mentioned before, just to show you, I know most of you are in California, I'm assuming if you're on this call, but California is not the only state that has active state-sponsored plans. All these other states do as well, Connecticut, Illinois, Massachusetts, Oregon, Washington. And then these states over here have passed the legislation. They're just waiting for implementation. So you'll probably start seeing this, maybe all across the board in all 50 states at some point, I'm not sure. But again, just to keep you guys aware that it's really meant to help the employees facilitate savings for retirement due to that big retirement savings gap. Whether or not it's the best case scenario, we'll go over that here in a second. So here in California, you may or may not be aware, but there was what we call a phase in. So basically, if you had over 100 employees as of September 20th, 2020, you had to either get your own individual retirement plan, whether that's a 401k, a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, or defined benefit plan. You had to get either that or just register with CalSavers. Okay. And then, of course, if you had more than 50 employees, the deadline was June 30th of last year. And then the reason actually we're having this webinar today is with maybe the assumption that you may already have more than 5 or more employees, or maybe you're thinking about growing. And if you're thinking about growing, this is definitely something that you want to just have on your radar. Okay. So as we know, June 30th of this year, if you have 5 or more employees, you must register with CalSavers or there will be penalties. So I will go over that too, what exactly those penalties are. But again, something that you want to definitely be familiar with. Okay. So let's start up here. And I have this here as like a decision tree. So this is again around registration. So ask yourself, did you have an average of 5 or more employees in the previous calendar year? Now, a good way to not create extra work for yourself is to look at the number of employees that you reported to EDD on your previous filings for the prior year, because you report those in each quarter. And that's what this is based off of. So essentially, just to give you an example, maybe in the first quarter, you had 7 employees. Maybe in the second quarter, second, third, and fourth, you had 2. So it did those average out to 5? If yes, we're going to follow this here. The next question is did you offer a retirement plan to your employees? That's again, a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, a 401k, or defined benefit. If no, or if no, then it's your choice. You have the opportunity to offer CalSavers, which is mandatory, or you can choose to offer another retirement plan. And we'll go over maybe some of those reasons why or why not you would want to do that. Here, if you did offer a retirement plan, CalSavers doesn't apply to you. So again, it's only there if you have more than 5 employees and you do not currently offer any retirement plan to your employees. The reason being, it's just allowing that opportunity for your employees to save, right? And then here, if you did not have more than 5 employees in the previous calendar year, you likely don't even have to apply for an exemption because it just doesn't apply to you, right? So that's this. Hopefully that kind of gives you a good start to understanding, the decision making around this. So essentially, if you have more than 5 employees and you choose to offer CalSavers to your employees, what's the process? It's actually very simple, very, very simple. So what happens here is you're going to get something in the mail. So you're going to get something in the mail and it's going to say, you're now eligible for CalSavers, please register. So you're going to register. And then you're going to provide the email addresses for all the employees, and CalSavers will initiate the invite. So the invite will go right to the employee. And then it's the employee's opportunity to either accept or decline. It's completely voluntary. You may be the employer. You may have to offer CalSavers because you have 5 or more employees, but maybe it happens where none of your employees actually participate, and that's fine. Again, it's just being in compliance. It's just having it available. So participation is completely voluntary for all employees. The question really that as an employee you would want to ask yourself, now it is also a requirement that the employer remains neutral. But I'm just going to kind of share with you maybe why an employee would want to participate or an employee may not want to participate. If the employee already has a Roth IRA or an IRA individually, And what that means is that those are retirement vehicles. So you can save up to $6,000 in each vehicle. So that's up to $12,000 a year. Or sorry, not in each vehicle. It's either one or the other. It's maxed out at 6,000. My apologies. And so if they're already contributing to that outside of work, it may not make sense for them to also do it during CalSavers, right? They may be working with a financial advisor or professional already. They may have that going on. So if that's the case, it probably isn't beneficial for them to do the state option. So if they already have a plan individually, have them consult with their financial professional, and they can simply decline. Or, if they don't have a Roth IRA or they don't have an IRA individually, maybe they want to consider it, again, just for the ease of it coming out of their paycheck. Another thing, just an aside for all of you on here, I'm not sure if you all participate in a Roth IRA or an IRA, but something always to know about state plans as well is that there are limitations. So as you'll see, there's around 5 different investment options with this state plan. If you do it individually, there's thousands. So it's, again, different just depending on what your goals are or what the employee's goals are, right? So hopefully this helps you kind of understand the material. And as I guess I just kind of went over this, but why would an employee opt out? One, the employee already has and is contributing to an IRA or a Roth. And number 2, the employee desires additional investment options. So that would maybe why someone would opt out. And again, as the business owner or the CEO yourselves running the business, it is totally up to you as well. So hopefully this is good information to you as to whether you would want to contribute to CalSavers or if you would want to do it individually and open up your own account. So that also very much applies to you. Okay, so let's talk about the benefits for the employer, right? Again, we know if you have 5 or more employees, it's mandatory if you don't offer another retirement plan. So again, it's just a matter of, are you going to contribute? Are your employees going to contribute or not? So the benefits for the employers is that it's no cost, right? So that's always an amazing thing, especially as all of you are building your businesses. I know there's a lot of costs that can be incurred. So this is definitely something that you don't have to add to that. Also, there's no fiduciary liability. A lot of times with some, retirement plans, there's a lot of administrative work that goes along with that in terms of, filing deadlines and different ratios and things like that. You don't have to worry about any of that. That's all the state. And then the third thing is that the good thing, right? The benefit is that you are offering employees a means to save for retirement. So you are part of helping them close that retirement gap so that they can retire one day and have some free time and some money for that. So that's the benefit. The drawbacks for the employers are that the day-to-day administration can be a burden. So I know I mentioned with other retirement plans, yes, there are deadlines and things like that. Same thing goes with CalSavers. So the responsibility is that of the owner. And what I mean by that is that there's certain rules to abide by. So whether that's you, whether it's, an administrative assistant that you have, whether it's perhaps the payroll company that you use. Now, some payroll companies will take on 100% of the responsibility of doing all of this for you, and some will not. So it's just, again, not sure who you're working with if you do that personally, your payroll personally, or if you're working with a company, but that is definitely a question that you want to ask, is that, hey, will you take care of all the administrative work for CalSavers or not? And so I've seen both. And again, if they won't, then that would be additional burden to either you, the business owner, or you would allocate that to someone else in your company if you're working with somebody else or have an admin assistant. Let me tell you a little bit about what the expectations are on that, okay? So withholding retirement savings from payroll and remitting to CalSavers, just like you would be for, like I said, Social Security or Medicare, you withhold from their paycheck and remit that to EDD. You would do the same thing here. You would withhold it from the paycheck and remit to CalSavers. So you're basically the in-between man. Also, there is an auto enrollment of 5% in the first year, increasing 1% per year, maxing out at 8%. So what this means is essentially, all of this is meant to be automatic so that it's probably less work for you. But at the same time, you know, that would be something, again, if you're using a payroll service that you would want to communicate to them. Do you have to manually remember that you have to increase each person's auto enrollment 1% a year? Everyone's going to have a different day, right? It starts 30 days after someone starts. So again, it's just an additional paperwork for, you know, someone to keep track of, essentially. Hopefully the best case scenario would be that the payroll person takes care of it all, so that they, you know, your mind is freed up to do what you do best, and that's running your business. But again, something to keep in mind. And then the other thing here, again, it's all kind of automated. So interestingly enough, as I mentioned, I'll give you a scenario here. Say, you know, your company, you have 5 or more employees, you register with CalSavers, and maybe all 5 people say, you know what, let's opt out of CalSavers. Well, in 2 years, everyone's going to automatically be re-enrolled. Not automatically. Okay, so then you're going to have to opt them out at that point in time, or there's a window of period. So again, just another, I guess, task to add to the task list. With this, again, if you have a payroll person or an admin, it would be much easier that way. But again, keep in mind, these would be additional responsibilities that would be on, you know, whoever you're hiring to do that, if not yourself. So that's this. And then the next one is no tax deduction for contributions. So a big part of why companies offer retirement plans, whether that's a 401k, a defined benefit plan, or pension plan, or whatnot, is because it's 2 things, right? Number one, retention. Or I'll skip to here first. Retention. It is a direct, just like they did back when pensions started. It was, hey, come join the military, right? We'll pay you a certain amount of money for the rest of your life, which is a pretty attractive deal, right? So the question is what type of talent are you trying to attract to your business? And, you know, do they feel like they're getting compensated fairly? And a great way to do that is by using a 401k plan or these other, you know, plans. Why? Because it becomes a tax deduction for you. So again, here to talk about CalSavers, but also for you going forward, is just to kind of have this in your mind. Again, if you start making great income and maybe you want some tax deductions, some other retirement plans may be a better benefit for you. It really just depends on, you know, how you're performing and what your goals are. So just some things to keep in the back of your mind there. Now we're going to talk about the employees. So encouragement, the benefits for the employees is, again, encouragement to start saving for retirement. Tax-free growth and withdrawal in a Roth IRA. So they have 2 options. And you, again, as the business owner, if you choose to do CalSavers, you have 2 options. You can choose the Roth option or the traditional IRA. Max contribution is $6,000 a year. The only difference, well, there's a couple differences, but the main difference is that one is after tax and one is before tax. So the question I would ask you is that, do you want tax-free retirement, or do you want to pay taxes in retirement? Choose that option. If you do choose the IRA option and not the Roth, you will get, you know, let's say you made $100,000 that year, you can subtract $6,000 and you will pay tax on the remainder, right? That's how the retirement vehicle taxes work in a nutshell, that is. And then auto deduction helps habit of savings. Just a little bit of a refresher of what we just discussed is that most people love the idea of, let me set it and forget it. Mind you, you can do that with your own individual one, but again, it's always great for people to have that coming directly out of their paycheck. So that's a benefit for employees. And then the drawback for employees is that here's the deal, right? If someone already has an individual, Roth IRA or IRA, they don't get an additional benefit. So again, it's $6,000 max contribution a year, unless you're over 50, you 50 years old, you get an extra $1,000 a year. So there's no additional benefit. So if someone is already, yourself included, maxing out the Roth or the IRA with $6,000 a year, with CalSavers, they do not get additional room. There's also no additional tax deduction. So let's just say that, you know, you did offer a 401k at your company. You could technically, this is the limit for 2022, you could contribute up to $20,500 that year, and that would be your deduction that year. And so again, offering the CalSavers doesn't give you that flexibility where you get any deduction over the traditional IRA, which is available to everybody. And then lastly, minimal investment choices for growth, you know, versus having your own elsewhere. So those are some of the benefits and drawbacks to this. And I want to go through some frequently asked questions. So again, you might be saying, well, you know, how do they know if I have more than 5 employees or less? It is because you fill out that paperwork every quarter that goes to the EDD. And so the idea is that they will send you a letter, an invitation once you do cross over that amount. In the event that they don't, and you do know that you have, you know, more than an average of 5 employees, it is your duty to call them. So call up CalSavers and say, hey, I was over 5 employees. I didn't get an invite. Can you please send me one? So just a heads up there. And there is a penalty for non-compliance. That's why I tell you this, is because if it's over 90 days past the notice of the due date notice of you actually registering with CalSavers, there will be a $250 fine per employee. If it's over 180 days, you can add $500 to that per employee. So about $750 per employee extra. So not needed. Again, especially if you guys have any questions, my contact will be at the end. I believe Daniel will share that all with you. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer it. Hopefully it's not too overwhelming. They do, you know, try to make it very simple. Every time I've called, I've gotten a hold of them. So that's a great thing. But yes, if for non-compliance, there is a fine. And I don't know what happens if it's over the 180 days, if that keeps compounding. Hopefully we don't need to find out. So the other thing here is can an employer make contributions on behalf of their employees? Why would one do that? Probably because they want to maintain a good employee. If you know, if you have a right-hand man, if it's maybe just the 2 of you right now, or 3 of you, or 4 of you, you probably want to retain that person. So you can either pay them in direct compensation, whether that's more hourly, or, you know, you can pay them a bonus, or you can offer them a, you know, 401k plan or other plan and match them. So basically every $100 they put away, you're going to contribute 100. The beautiful thing about that is again, that's tax deductible. Now, you cannot do that with the CalSavers, again, because you're basically the liaison between the state. You're just withholding it and remitting it. That's all. So you cannot make contributions on your employee's behalf or in matching. If you do desire to, you do have the opportunity to explore, again, other employer-sponsored retirement plans if you so wish. And there's plenty of different options available, even if it is just 2 of you or 3 of you or 4 of you. So if that is your goal, retention and you know, all that good stuff, there is other options available out there. So some other frequently asked questions is that, what is the difference between a 401k and CalSavers? So I think this is a really good one. With a 401k, it's a company plan. So therefore it is all customizable depending on the goals of the employer, whether that's attracting and retaining talent or matching contributions. It is very, very customizable. Think about, you know, building a car from scratch, right? You can choose if you wanted tinted windows, chrome, what do you call it? Chrome wheels, heated steering wheel, leather or material fabric. It's very, very customizable. Whereas the state plan is the state plan, right? As you saw before, it was more of an auto enrollment, and that you actually had to do more work to stop the auto enrollment. And maybe that was designed to create less work for the employee. I'm not sure. But again, just this is the idea of what the differences are. The employer on the 401k may get a tax deduction. So, if you're contributing to your employee's retirement, you're going to get a tax deduction for that, as well as have a much higher contribution limit for yourself. And maybe that's important. Maybe you're here and you're saying, you know what, I don't even have a desire to have more than 4 employees or 5 employees at any time. And that's okay. But you maybe still want to retain the employees that you have if they're very valuable. And the only way to get, higher limits are with some of these additional plans. So that may be a reason why you would want to do either a 401k or another type. With the CalSavers, as we said, there's no tax deduction, as the employer is essentially that third party holding and remitting funds. So that's pretty much their role. And the max contribution is $6,000 per year. So that's that. And then the last frequently asked question I have here is that what happens to my CalSavers account if I move states or pass away, God forbid? Well, it's the same rules that apply if an employee held a retirement account individually, whether that's at the bank, whether that's with a financial professional, whether that's at Fidelity, Vanguard, Chase Bank. Same rules apply. You always want to assign a beneficiary, if not 2 beneficiaries, which basically, if something happens to you, someone else will inherit that. Okay, so same thing here. So that would be up to the employee to do so, to assign a beneficiary to their account. And then, well, what if they moved to states? What if they moved to Vegas or, to Washington? Well, the CalSavers plan, the money that they had previously saved in either that Roth or the IRA, that can be rolled over into their own personal one. So again, they could then move that to their own personal retirement account outside of CalSavers and maybe have a different investment options available to them. So those are a couple of the frequently asked questions. And maybe before I go any further, maybe we can open it up for a couple questions. If we can, Daniel. I don't know. I have the chat here. Oh, okay.
Sure. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to drop it in the chat or the Q&A box.
Okay. Any questions? And what I will do, well, I guess, maybe you guys are thinking of questions. I'll just share this. So this is, if for you guys, if you had an average of 5 or more employees in the prior calendar year, if the answer is yes, you'll receive that invitation from CalSavers to register. And it's very simple. It doesn't take very long at all. You either have 90 days or 6 months to implement. And remittance is very similar to EDD, as I mentioned. You would put your employer bank account on there. And then, so that basically that's how it works. You'd give them your employer bank account, and then you would be responsible from withholding those from the employee's paycheck. And you would be responsible for notifying the employees of CalSavers. And the reason for that being is you don't want them to all of a sudden get less of a paycheck and wonder where their money went. So very imperative. Again, your only goal is to notify them. Everything else will be done through CalSavers. And who do they reach out to if they have questions? They would call the CalSavers employee line. Or not employee line, but yeah, for employees. They would call that line. And their only job is to answer questions for businesses and employees. So that's how that works. And then again, you may be on here saying, well, I don't have 5 employees. Maybe I have 2 or 1. Maybe it's just me. And so then it would be no. You can't register if you don't. If you have, I think they were saying like 4.7, you have the opportunity to register. You can notify, but the thing is that you can notify the employees and they can individually register if they'd like. And again, you would withhold it from their paycheck. So hopefully that's a good summary. Did anyone have any questions? I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, we had one question come in. If you already offer a private simple IRA DPI, do you have to sign with CalSavers?
You do not. No. And so what happened, that's a great question. Thank you for that, is that because the EDD was the one that is responsible for this, they were sending out notices to all businesses who they saw did not have a plan in place. So, if you, like you said, have I don't know if you mentioned that was a simple IRA or not, but if it is, then you do not need to offer anything else. So as of right now, if you would have received a notice, if you did have more than 5 employees, if you did receive a notice and then you do have your own plan, I would advise definitely respond to that, because there's a reason why they sent out that request. If you didn't get a request and you have your own plan, you have more than 5 employees, that's great. They already have that on record. So awesome question. Is there any other questions?
I have one question come in. Can I use the CalSavers account to save for a house or continued education?
Really great question. So it works just like if you were to have an IRA or a Roth IRA individually. What I mean by that is, with an IRA, because it's in the tax later bucket, meaning you save taxes now and you pay taxes in the future, you can't access your money until you're 59 and a half. If you choose in the CalSavers, remember you have 2 options. You could do the IRA or the Roth. You do the IRA, you can't have access to that until you're 59 and a half, or you would pay a 10% penalty. So the answer would be no to that. If you do choose the Roth option, you are choosing to pay the taxes now on the way in. And so every 5 years, you have access to your principal. So I wouldn't personally advise that, but in an emergency, the Roth would be a little bit better because you could access the funds if needed. But again, neither would really be advisable for purchasing a home or for education. There would be other vehicles that would be better served for that. But really good question.
Awesome. Any other questions? We have one about questions on CalSavers for their employees. So what is the best channel or channels to send my employees when they have a question about their account?
Yes. So if someone has a question, it would be to call. It would be to call. Like I said, every time I've called, they've picked up almost right away. I wasn't even on hold. So they're very knowledgeable. So it would just be the quickest thing would be to call and then get an answer in probably 5 minutes. Great question.
So you mentioned employees are automatically enrolled for a 5% payroll deduction. What are some reasons employees might want to increase their voluntary deductions?
That's a great one. So it starts at 5% of payroll deduction. They would want to increase their deductions if one, they're wanting a little bit. Now it won't be much, but I mean, I would just say if they're looking to save more money. I don't know individually how much they're saving outside of CalSavers, but again, it's an easy way because it's an auto deduction. So I would say, again, you max out at $6,000 a year, so that would be $500 a month if you did it equal. So if someone's doing $200 a month, but yet they find themselves having an additional $2,000 left over each month, maybe it'd be wise to increase their savings. Now, I will say this too, even for you all as business owners, that it's always great to have short-term savings as well. That's the number one reason why people get into debt, is because they don't pay themselves first. And so, they pay their credit card, they pay their car, they pay their phone, they pay their internet. And then if there's anything left over, they pay themselves. But if you can get in the habit of paying yourself first, you can kind of eliminate the need for reaching for the credit card and all that stuff. So, or getting into debt. Now, I say that to say that when you ask about, maybe increasing the deduction, this would maybe be on a personal basis. However, you would want to think to yourself, or even as a business owner, do I have sufficient short-term savings? And what that means is either 3 to 6 months of income or expenses saved up, because we all know things can go haywire sometimes. So you want to be in a position where you don't have to be charged, for reaching into those retirement savings early, or have to take a loan, or have to take, early withdrawal. So the way to do that would be to have sufficient short-term savings. So the goal is 3 to 6 months, as I said. So hopefully that helps.
Absolutely. All right, good.
And I know, oh, sorry, Daniel, what was that?
Go ahead. No. I was just going to see if there's any other questions. But what were we
And I
about to?
know, oh, sorry about that. What was that?
I was just saying, what were you about to mention?
Oh, I was going to mention that I know I had a question here, or a couple of the questions. I'll just go over a couple additional questions that I usually get. How does CalSavers impact business taxes and employee taxes? It doesn't at all. So again, you're just the liaison for those. Yeah, so that's that. What else do I have here? Investment options available. As I mentioned, there's about 5, and they do it based off of age, target age. So, this is more of a newer type of technology, but you basically would put in, I'm 40 years old right now, and I plan to retire at the age of 55. And it will tell you what fund to put your money in. Because of course, as you get closer to retirement, you don't want to be as risky, because the chances you could lose a lot of your savings is a lot higher. So, there are those targeted funds, which again are available with CalSavers or without CalSavers. So a little bit about the investment options there. And the other thing, so all employees count, whether they're part-time, full-time. The only people that do not count would be people that are 1099. And I know that's common sometimes, especially when you're in the building phase of your businesses, maybe like you all, is that people may have a contractor or pay someone to come advise or be a temporary employee or something like that. So just keep this in mind. If you're remitting payroll remittances for them, they're considered employee. If you're not, then they don't count as an employee. So that, and then the other thing, again, if you guys need support on or have questions around the CalSavers, you're most definitely welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer or guide you in that direction, and or the CalSavers number is also a good resource. So.
Great. Well, thank you, Melanie. This was so insightful and informative, and I'm positive that our audience felt the same. Again, we'll be sending everyone on this call the recording of this webinar, and we'll post it on PCV's YouTube channel. We'll have a great rest of your day, everybody. And again, feel free to reach out to Melanie.
Thank you so much. Oh, I didn't have my screen up. Should I put my email here in the chat, or?
I'll send it to everybody.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you all. I appreciate your time, and all the best while you build your businesses.
Absolutely. Bye.